And I guess that's sort of the way I look at the UN. I think there's a lot of changes that need to be made in it, a lot of places to go. It's certainly at its low point, but I think it's worth trying to make it better. And hopefully out of the conference today, and we'll hear from the European view, we'll hear from others, that we'll get a really broad look of this whole issue, and if there is a chance to make it better.
While I have serious reservations about the United Nations and the way it functions, I do believe that the United States needs to remain engaged. We need to continue to be a member, and we need to continue to hold on to our seat on the Security Council. I think we should seriously look at reducing funding and reforming many of the internal processes of the United Nations, and in particular, we need to address the decidedly anti-American, anti-democratic, and anti-human rights postures that body has assumed in recent years.
But democracy does take place at the UN. Non-democratic tyrants who do not share our values have the majority of the votes. And this is an example of democracy that was once described as what happens when you allow democracy to decide what's for dinner, and 2 wolves and 1 lamb get to vote. Ladies and gentlemen, we can't allow ourselves to be outvoted out of our principles and the things that we believe in, let alone our national security.
And I wonder if America would be willing to work with or for such a scheme within the United Nations, rather than say, we will do preemptive strikes, and this will be up for us to decide, because then the Europeans fear, what if anybody else would use the same right for preemptive strikes?
It simply makes sense to me to work through the United Nations whenever possible. Indeed, it's the only way to address comprehensively the myriad problems facing the world. At the same time, the United States would not and should not ever give up its right to act alone. But those cases should be the exception rather than the rule.
I think if you're going to use unilateralism, you have to use it with a light touch. You have to be more politically skillful than that. There are ways of practicing give and take and negotiation and compromise which allow you to preserve essentially a unilateralist strategy while still giving the appearance of listening and receptivity.
We need to lead the way in creating new international institutions or a forum that better addresses ours and the world's needs. Alternatively, we must strengthen the existing international institutions and make them more relevant if there is no other way. The existing order is one that has brought us peace and prosperity for the last 50 years. It is worth saving.
Now, the UN system has given rise to an array of very effective programs in the area of health, in the area of education, refugee, and sustainable development. And so, oftentimes speakers say, yeah, do we need the UN? Well, I think we need the UN, but I think the UN needs reform. And I think there's a lot of things that can be done today to be able to reform the UN.
The UN will have to adapt. It will have to yield on occasion to America. But America cannot run the world on its own. If the UN did not exist, it would have to be invented. Today, as last time, much of the task would fall to the Americans.
The basic principles of human freedom and dignity are universal. People should be able to say what they think, worship as they wish, elect those who govern them. It is with this idea that I carry my responsibility, that I carry out my duties at the United Nations. We have a lot of stories to tell. We are the leader, we are the largest leader, the largest donor to all United Nations humanitarian assistance programs.
There are only 2 things that can destroy what our nation has and will take us the way most other countries have gone. And the first is apathy. People not caring. Just not making any difference. Whatever your opinions are, I got something else to do, forget it. And the second is lack of education. Lack of understanding of the issues. What we try and do here is not tell anybody what to think, but we try and lay it out and let people make their own minds up. And if we have those two things, that this country will never change.